Caesar's Palace, May 1977. A young man with thick glasses is being escorted through a staff-only corridor behind the casino floor. Two security guards grip his arms. He isn't drunk. He isn't causing trouble. But they found something under his shirt that they've never seen before. A device that shouldn't exist. Inside the back room, he sits against the wall while supervisors argue over what they're holding. It's small, wired, custom-built with a precision far beyond anything a casual gambler could make. When they demand answers, he breaks. His name is Marty Taft, and he tells them the device isn't his idea at all. It belongs to his father, an engineer who hates gambling, avoids casinos, and somehow designed a machine that can beat blackjack in real time. This is a story of how a family man found a flaw in the system, built a machine to exploit it, and became the biggest threat casinos had ever faced. Reno, Nevada, 1969. Keith Taft stands at the entrance of a Reno casino. His wife, Dorothy, waits beside him. She doesn't like this place. The noise, the smoke, the faces of people losing money they don't have. Keith notices her hesitation. "Go ahead," she says. "Just look." He steps inside. Rows of slot machines line the walls. Dealers flip cards across green felt tables. Men in suits watch from elevated platforms. Keith moves through the floor slowly, observing each game. Roulette, craps, blackjack. He stops at a blackjack table. The dealer moves fast. Players make decisions he doesn't understand. Some win, most lose. A man at the bar notices Keith's confusion. "The goal is to get closer to 21 than the dealer without going over," the man says. Keith nods. He still doesn't understand why players make the choices they make. What information are they using? What pattern are they following? He sits down, places a small bet, wins a hand, then another. 15 minutes later, he walks away with a few dollars more than he started with. On the drive home, he thinks about what he saw. He's an engineer at Raytheon. He builds electronic systems, solves problems. Blackjack is a problem with rules, probabilities, and outcomes. If it has structure, it can be solved. The following week, Keith buys a book on blackjack strategy. He brings it home and reads it twice. Then he asks his eldest son to deal him cards at the dinner table. Dorothy watches from the kitchen. She's worrying that he is spending a lot of time on this. Keith doesn't look up. He's practicing the book's strategy, following the charts, testing whether the math holds. Hand after hand, his son deals. Keith tracks the results in a notebook. 3 weeks pass. He's playing every night now. Dorothy's worries started to grow. This isn't casual interest. This is focus, the kind Keith usually reserves for work projects. But Keith isn't thinking about money. He's thinking about correctness, about whether the system in the book actually works, about whether there's a better way. One evening, Keith realizes something. Counting cards relies on human memory, tracking every card played, adjusting the count, calculating the optimal bet. All of it happens in the mind. And minds make mistakes. They get tired. They lose track. But what if the counting didn't happen in a mind? What if a machine did it instead? He sits at his workbench that night, opens a notebook, starts sketching circuits. If a small computer could track every card, calculate probabilities in real time, and signal the correct move, it would eliminate human error completely. No one has done this before, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. Keith works at night now. After his family goes to bed, he goes to the garage. He's building something no one has seen before. The first challenge is input. In a casino, hands are watched. Any visible movement could expose him. He thinks about this for days. Then, one afternoon, sitting in traffic, he presses down on the accelerator. The pressure is subtle, invisible. His toes. He can wire switches into his shoes. 4 micro switches, 2 above and 2 below each big toe. A binary input system. 1, 2, 4, 8. Any card value from 1 to 13 can be entered by pressing different combinations, and no one will see it. The second challenge is output. How does the computer tell him what to do? He considers sound, but that's too obvious. Vibration is possible, but the technology isn't reliable yet. Then he thinks about it. Tiny lights embedded in the upper rim of a pair of glasses. Red for hit, gray for stand, orange for split, white for double down. It takes months to build. He cannibalizes calculator parts, drills holes into a belt to mount the control unit, runs thin wires from his shoes to the processor strapped around his waist, tests the fiber optics in the glasses. By early 1971, he has a working prototype. It's bulky, uncomfortable, but it works. Dorothy doesn't say anything when he shows her. She just looks at him with an expression he can't quite read. The prototype works on the workbench, but wearing it is different. The wires are fragile. The toe switches require precise pressure. Too soft and nothing registers. Too hard and the sequence breaks. Keith spends weeks practicing at home, walking around the house with the device on, sitting at the table, standing, moving naturally while inputting card values. The belt unit is about an inch thick. Not invisible, but slim enough to hide under a loose shirt. The glasses look normal from a distance. Up close, someone might notice the fiber optic threads, but only if they're looking for them. He tests the system hundreds of times, runs simulations, checks the math. The computer gives him about a 4% advantage, enough to win consistently over time. But Keith knows what happens to card counters. He's read the stories. Players dragged into back rooms, banned, threatened, sometimes worse. Casinos don't need laws to stop you. They just need to decide you're a problem. Dorothy asks him if it's worth it. He doesn't answer right away. "It's just math," he says eventually. "I'm not cheating." Keith reads everything he can about casino security. Pit bosses watch for patterns. Dealers report unusual behavior. Surveillance cameras cover every angle. Any mistake could end the operation before it starts. He decides to test the system at smaller casinos first, places where security might be less intense. If it works there, he can move to bigger venues. But the fear stays with him. He's not a gambler. He doesn't drink. He doesn't take risks. And now he's about to walk into a mob-connected casino wearing a hidden computer. If they catch him, he doesn't know what will happen. Keith drives to Reno in the fall of 1971. He parks a few blocks from the casino and sits in the car for 10 minutes, checking the wiring, testing the toe switches, making sure the lights in his glasses work. Then he walks inside. The floor is crowded. Music plays from somewhere he can't see. He moves toward the blackjack tables, scanning for one that looks right. Not too fast, not too crowded. A dealer who seems distracted. He sits down, places a $5 bet, small enough to avoid attention. The dealer flips the cards. Keith taps his toe, inputs the values. A moment later, a red flicker in his glasses. Hit. He taps the table. The dealer gives him another card. 17. A gray light. Stand. He wins the hand. Then another. Then another. The computer is working. Every decision is correct. No guessing, no instinct, just math. Halfway through the session, a pit boss walks past, puts a hand on Keith's shoulder. "If there's anything I can do for you tonight, let me know." Keith freezes. The man's hand is inches from the belt unit. He forces a smile. "Thank you." The pit boss moves on. Keith exhales, plays another 20 minutes, then leaves with a small profit. On the drive home, he realizes something. The machine doesn't just work in theory, it works in reality. Keith returns to Reno 11 more times over the next 3 months. Each trip, he bets $10 a hand, small enough to stay off the radar. He wins consistently. Not every hand, not every session, but over time, the edge is undeniable. By the end of 1972, he's made $2,000. The money doesn't matter. What matters is proof. The computer works. The math holds. Casinos can be beaten. Dorothy sees the numbers. She sees the notebook where Keith tracks every session. She doesn't say anything, but Keith knows what she's thinking. This isn't a hobby anymore. Keith sits Dorothy down one evening. He has a plan. If he raises his bets, the winnings will scale. The computer gives him a consistent edge. All he needs is a bigger bankroll. "How much?" Dorothy asks. $4,000. She stares at him. $4,000 is their savings, money for the house, for their 4 kids, for college. "If you lose it," she says, "You stop. No more casinos, no more computers." Keith agrees. He packs his bags and drives to Las Vegas. This time, he's not going in small casinos. He's going to Caesar's Palace. Keith enters the casino with confidence. The system has worked every time. The math is solid. All he needs to do is play. He sits at a $25 table, higher stakes than he's ever played. The dealer shuffles. Keith starts inputting. The computer signals. He follows. He loses the first hand, then the second, then the third. Bad variance. It happens. He adjusts, keeps playing. The computer keeps working, but the cards don't cooperate. By the end of the night, Keith is down $4,000. The entire bankroll gone. He sits in his hotel room and stares at the ceiling. He knows the math is right. The system works, but probability doesn't care about one night. Short-term variance can destroy anyone. He drives home the next morning. Dorothy doesn't ask what happened. She already knows. Keith puts the computer in a drawer, goes back to work at Raytheon, tries to focus on his family, but the obsession doesn't leave. He knows he was right. The system works. He just didn't have enough time for the math to play out. Dorothy is relieved. She doesn't want him near casinos anymore, and Keith respects the deal they made. For 2 years, he doesn't touch the device. But in 1975, Keith receives a call from a journalist at the San Jose Mercury. They want to write a story about his blackjack computer. Keith agrees. He's not using it anymore. What's the harm in sharing the story? The article runs that summer. Keith reads it once, then files it away. He doesn't expect anything to come of it. 3 weeks later, the phone rings. "My name is Ken Uston. I read about your computer." Ken is a professional card counter, former vice president of the Pacific Stock Exchange. Now he runs a blackjack team that wins hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. He's precise, confident, and skeptical. Keith agrees to meet him in Las Vegas. They sit at a private table. Ken deals cards. He counts mentally the way he always does. Keith wears the computer. After 20 hands, Ken stops. "The machine is faster than me," Ken says, "and it doesn't make mistakes." He offers Keith a deal, 10% of all future winnings in exchange for 5 computers. Ken will supply the players and the bankroll. Keith will build the technology. Keith calls Dorothy that night. For the first time, she doesn't object. This time, someone else is taking the risk, and the potential payout is life-changing. Keith needs to redesign everything. The original toe switch system only works for him. It's too difficult for other players to learn. Ken's team needs something simpler, something anyone can operate. Keith solves it with a 2-person system. One person stands behind the table. They don't play, they just watch. Their job is to input the card values using a small keyboard hidden in their jacket pocket. 4 keys, same binary system, 1, 2, 4, 8. The data goes to a processor, then to a transmitter in the inputter's shoe. The signal is sent wirelessly to the player at the table. The player wears a small receiver in their own shoe. When the computer calculates the optimal move, it sends a vibration. 1 quick pulse for a hit, a long buzz for a stand, a double tap for a double down. No lights, no visible signals, just a silent vibration that only the player can feel. Keith builds the system with his sons. Marty is 25. Dana is 19. Jody helps with the wiring. They work in the garage for weeks, testing, refining, making it foolproof. Keith knows this is dangerous. He's involving his children in something that could go very wrong. But they're adults, and the money is too significant to ignore. Ken's team arrives at Keith's house to learn the system. They're skeptical at first. They've made millions counting cards. They don't think they need a computer. Marty demonstrates the input system. He stands behind a mock blackjack table and taps the keyboard in his pocket. The player at the table receives the signal instantly. After an hour of practice, the team is convinced. They spend 2 days training, learning the codes, practicing the timing. By the end, everyone can operate the system flawlessly. April 1977. The team arrives in Las Vegas separately. They don't check into the same hotels. They don't walk into casinos together. Everything is coordinated to avoid suspicion. Keith watches from across the room as Marty approaches a blackjack table. Marty doesn't sit. He stands behind the rail, observing. His hand stays casually in his jacket pocket. Ken's player sits at the table, places a bet. The dealer shuffles. The cards come out. Marty taps the keyboard. The data flows through the processor. A signal is sent. The player feels a vibration in his shoe. He acts. Wins the hand. They repeat this process for hours. Small bets at first, then larger. By the end of the first night, they're up $15,000. The second night, they win $20,000. The third night, $40,000. By the end of the first week, they've made $75,000. In today's money, that's nearly $400,000. The following week, they increase their stakes. Multiple inputters work different tables. The rhythm becomes perfect. The signals are instant. The decisions are flawless. But casino security starts to notice. The same players winning large amounts across multiple sessions. The betting patterns are unusual, not random, too calculated. Pit bosses watch more closely. Dealers shuffle more frequently. The team adjusts. They rotate players, change casinos, but the attention is building. One evening, Marty has a particularly good run. The player at his table wins 12 hands in a row, pulls in $30,000. When the session ends, Marty leaves through the main entrance. 2 security guards follow him. Marty notices them but doesn't react. He keeps walking. They move faster, close the distance. One of them grabs his arm. "Come with us." They pull him through a staff-only door, down a hallway, into a back room. Marty doesn't resist. He's not a criminal. He's just a kid who built a computer with his dad. They pat him down, find the device immediately, pull it out, stare at it. "What is this?" Marty's heart is pounding. He knows he should stay quiet, but he's terrified. These aren't police. They're casino security, and he doesn't know what they'll do. "It's a computer," he says. "It tracks cards." The casino sends the device to the Nevada Gaming Commission. From there, it goes to the FBI. Agents examine it, run tests, consult with engineers. The question is simple. Is this cheating? The answer takes weeks. Finally, the ruling comes back. The device doesn't alter cards, doesn't manipulate the game. It just processes information faster than a human brain. It's not illegal. Marty is released, without any charges, but the damage is done. Casinos across Las Vegas know the technology exists. They share information, update their countermeasures. The operation is over. Ken disbands the team, and Keith's advantage disappears overnight. Keith sits with his sons after Marty returns from Las Vegas. No one says much. The operation worked. They proved the system, made significant money, but Marty was dragged into a back room and interrogated. That reality sits heavily in the room. Dorothy doesn't yell. She doesn't need to. Keith knows what he did. He involved his children in something dangerous, and while the outcome could have been worse, it was close enough. Ken Uston moves on to other methods, larger teams, different strategies. Keith's computer remains a footnote in Ken's career. But for Keith, it's everything. Keith doesn't stop. He builds new devices, shuffle analyzers that predict card distribution, ace location systems that track high-value cards, team-based signaling tools that coordinate players across multiple tables. None of them work as well as the original blackjack computer. None of them create the same edge. But Keith keeps building. He can't help it. The challenge is the thing, not the money, not the fame, the problem itself. He patents some of the designs, shares others with small gambling circles. His name becomes known in a very specific community, people who study advantage play, people who look for edges no one else sees. By the 1980s, casinos have changed. Surveillance systems are more sophisticated. Dealers are trained to spot unusual behavior. Gaming commissions write new regulations. Much of this evolution happens because of Keith Taft. He didn't break the casinos, but he forced them to adapt. His computer proved that technology could challenge institutional advantages, that a single person with enough knowledge could shift the balance. The device is eventually displayed in gambling museums, written about in books, studied by engineers. Keith Taft becomes a legend in a world that most people don't know exists. But Keith doesn't see himself that way. He's just an engineer who saw a problem and built a solution. The fact that it worked and that it scared an entire industry is just a side effect of good math. Years later, someone will find a different edge, a loophole in a different game, a system so strange, so mathematically improbable, that even Keith Taft won't believe it at first. That story is even bigger than this one, and it begins right after this.